Good morning or good afternoon to each and everyone, and welcome to this 1.5-hour webinar on scaling and optimizing nature-based solutions for resilient cities. I'm seeing that the number of participants is far below the number of registered participants, so I suggest we wait for a few minutes more until we see that number of participants are increasing a bit. So please stay tuned meanwhile. Okay, then let's start up again. We have an audience here today, according to the list of registered participants, coming from Beijing in east to Buenos Aires in west. We'll see if they are all attending, but we are in particular welcoming our European participants, given that the focus of the webinar is quite a bit European oriented. My name is Sindre Langås. I'm a research manager at the Norwegian Institute for Water Research, in short, NIVA. NIVA is in turn a member of the Norwegian Network for Environmental Research Institutes, named SCIENS, and SCIENS is again a member of the Partnership for European Environmental Research. NIVA is also a member of EURAQUA. Together with my colleague Isabel Seifert, with a comprehensive track record in the research and innovation related to nature-based solution, I will guide you through this webinar. And before proceeding, I need to make sure that you have all given your consent to the webinar being recorded. I think you have heard some question telling that it's being recorded. So unless if you don't want this to be a part of a recorded webinar, you have to leave the webinar as a matter of fact. As this question always comes up, yes, the recording of the webinar and the PDF versions of the presentations will be published quite soon after the webinar, and a link to where you can find it will be sent out tomorrow. I will then start sharing my screen here. Is this working well, Erik?
Yeah, you have to do the same procedure as last time. Visningsalternativer.
Okay.
There. No, beside you have on the other side there visningsinstillingen.
And I cannot find it here.
Yeah, it's right to the right, a little bit to the right there.
There it is. Yeah. Sorry for this.
No. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Thank you.
So we are three networks convening this webinar. It's the Peer Partnership for European Environmental Research, which are 8 quite large and leading European research centers working together. It's the European chapter of ICLEI, the world's leading network of local and regional governments committed to sustainable developments. And it's EURAQUA, the European network of freshwater research organizations that are convening this webinar. But it's done in collaboration with 2 ongoing projects, the ReGreen projects funded through the European Horizon 2020 program and with co-funding from China, and likewise the Decipher project funded by GPI Urban Europe, but also with Chinese co-funding. We have an exciting agenda ahead. Following my introduction, my colleague Raisa Markop will lead a Mentimeter session where the purpose is to map the audience and your expectations of today. Then we will have 3 15-minute presentations by Dr. Hutchins, Dr. Rizzi, and Fantasia, which is the core of the webinar. And then we'll conclude the webinar with a panel discussion with the same speakers. This will be led by my colleague Isabel Seifert, and Mr. Erik Tollefsen is producing this event. You might ask how you can interact today. As I said, we will start off with a Mentimeter, which in itself is a way of interacting. But to the specific presentations, you are able to post questions or comments in the Q&A option in Zoom. At the bottom of Zoom, you will see there is a chat function and there is a Q&A option. I would urge you to use the Q&A option, and please start your question with the name of the speaker as the first word so that we are absolutely clear whom you are addressing your question or comment to. You can also upvote questions or comments by clicking on the like option, and this will be very helpful for my colleague Isabel, who will take a lead on the question part. 1 to 2 questions will be taken orally directly after the presentations. The rest will be addressed in the Q&A part of Zoom by the speakers to their ability. Christina Pantazzi, who is the last speaker, she will go immediately into the panel discussion. So she will probably spend some time after the webinar to address some of the questions that have come up. If you have proposals for more broad overarching panel discussion themes, please start those with the panel queue for Isabel to see which one you think might be interesting with a more broad discussion. Let me see now. Then I will ask colleague Raisa to run a small Mentimeter exercise so that the speakers and the organizers better understand who the audience are and what your expectations are for today. So please, Raisa, turn on the Mentimeter exercise.
Thank you, Sindre. I'll go ahead and share my screen now. I would like everyone who wants to participate to take out your phones, your smartphones, and your camera. With that, you can scan the QR code. If you don't want to use your camera, you can go to menti.com and submit the code that you see here. So use your phone's camera or go to menti.com to press in the code and enter the small survey we have here. I'll leave it up for 10 more seconds so you can figure it out. All right, I need to check. Yeah, we have 13 at least participants. Try just a couple of more seconds in case some of you need to enter the code again or scan the code. All right, let's go ahead. Thank you. I'm getting hearts and likes here. Fantastic. So we'll go through with the first question. This is easy. We'd like to know where you come from, which network you come from. So please just choose the option that's suitable for you and send it in. Here we are, a lot of people. That's great. We have 36 answers now. So we're gonna move on to the next question. Since we are a lot of people, we'd like to know where in the world you're based in right now, currently. So you can, on the map, just pin on the map where you are, and we'll see it pop up here on the big screen. Okay, a lot of Norway. We have the UK and Germany, Spain, maybe France, maybe UK. Really interesting. Do you have one in Australia, or was it just a finger that didn't move quite correctly?
It seems as if the representative from Buenos Aires didn't make it 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it's understandably a bit early for any type of webinar. All right, and we have the last question here about what your expectations are. So you have 4 options to choose from, and we'd like to know what you hope to learn more about today. Great. Thank you so much for your answers. Stop my sharing here and give the word back to Sindre. Thank you.
Thank you, Raisa. Okay, I will then go back to my presentation, and I hope it will work out. Is it working now, Erik, or do I need to redo something?
No, it works. Fine.
Okay, it works. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so back to the webinar, and the main focus of today is scaling and optimizing of nature-based solutions in cities. Nature-based solutions to societal challenges can be defined as living solutions that are inspired and supported by nature, which are cost-effective and simultaneously provide environmental, social, and economic benefits, benefit biodiversity, and support the delivery of a wide range of ecosystem services, and help build resilience and adaptation to climate change. Their deployment in European cities, as other cities worldwide, develop quickly, despite lack of a full understanding of all the pros and cons of these solutions, in contrast to the gray engineering-based ones, often with the more well-established evidence base. Supported by both city and EU funds in Europe, many innovation projects are being carried out to test out different NBS concepts, often driven by climate adaptation needs, but with strong expectation upon multifunctionality. A need for multifunctional assessment tools evaluating trade-offs and co-benefits for various types of nature-based solutions has been increasingly identified in recent years. It's therefore a great pleasure for me to introduce the first speaker, Dr. Mike Hutchins. Mike is a water quality modeler based at the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology. His research focuses on impacts of freshwater eutrophication, in particular in urbanizing river networks. He will present a conceptual approach for quantifying multiple benefits of urban nature-based solution. And his presentation is pre-recorded. So Mike is with us, but we have a recorded presentation of him.
Yep, then I will share the screen. Just hold on.
Hello, and thank you for joining. My name's Mike Hutchins, and I'm going to be talking about urban nature-based solutions.
The sound disappeared, Erik.
I noticed. Just hold on. Stop sharing. I do this one more time. Let me see here. I think I have to close.
Hello, and thank you for joining. My name's Mike Hutchins, and I'm going to be talking about urban nature-based solutions.
It stops again. Strange thing.
Eric, should I try sharing my presentation from my side?
Yeah, try that, please.
Should I try that? Yeah, okay.
I'm not quite sure why it stops.
Let's see. Hello, and thank you for joining. My name's Mike Hutchins, and I'm going to be talking about urban nature-based solutions and outlining.
I think it turns off the sound because you do something about the your microphone, Michael. Can you try it again? And just leave your microphone off and start it again. Just end it and then start again, I think. Just stop sharing and start the presentation one more time. Can you do that, Michael? Because we can't hear anything. And start from the beginning. Okay. No, no sound.
Maybe, Mike, that you take it plan B and simply go through the PowerPoints directly. I think that's what we end up with here now. There is some problem with the sound in the recorded version. So could you do that, Mike?
Yes, I have to find another version of the PowerPoint in order to do that, because I've only got the one with the recording on it. I can hear it all on my system when I played it just now, but it seems like it's not broadcasting.
No.
Is it correct?
Yeah, that's right.
I can hear it all.
Could you share it, Eric, and then Mike asks you to move on?
Yeah, but I have only the recorded version. But let me try one more time. Just one more time, and we will try to figure this out. Just hold on. Share screen 2.
Hello, and thank you for joining. My name's Mike Hutchins, and I'm going to be talking about urban nature-based solutions and outlining some work that we're doing in a project called Decipher, which is taking a conceptual approach to understanding why scale is vital in the planning of nature-based solutions. So a bit of background first. Urban nature-based solutions are resource efficient, and they use natural processes addressing a variety of societal challenges and provide benefits in terms of economics, societal benefits, and also environmental benefits. There's many suggestions for the design of NBS, but it's interesting to note what actually is happening in practice. And there's some very good examples of how this has been collated and illustrated in this slide, where we have a database of 100 cities across Europe and nearly 1,000 projects. And they've illustrated very much that there's a clear prevalence for urban forestry and parkland in terms of NBS. Briefly, in terms of terminology, much of it originating from the stormwater side. So we have sustainable urban drainage systems, we have sponge cities, which is a commonly used term in China, and then we have low impact development, and maybe looking more broadly at the sort of wider benefits, we then often use terms such as nature-based solutions and green infrastructure. So the objectives of our project, essentially we're looking at building multidisciplinary teams where we have participants from science, technology, business, planning and governance sectors. And the idea is to co-design novel solutions for livable, sustainable cities that reflect differing cultural and climatic contexts. And we're looking at how best can we go about doing this. And underpinning that, we have some key questions. Firstly, is related to scale, so it looks at how does the size of implemented NBS and the spatial extent of its influence affect co-benefits and trade-offs that may arise between a whole range of different environmental quality indicators. We move on then to look at how these co-benefits and trade-offs might be affected by climate and by social drivers. And allied to that, we also are looking at business innovation and how can that be incentivised to provide or contribute to NBS. And the specific focus in our project will be on urban forestry and on equitable access to urban green space. So the project that I've been mentioning is called Decipher, and it's an international project that's ongoing and is being jointly led by researchers in Europe and in China. So the project is putting sustainable urban hydrology and water quality in the context of impacts in other environmental domains, and in doing that then seeking to identify optimal nature-based solutions, both in terms of what solution and where in the city it's best located. So this is based on various ongoing research we've done in the project consortium. At CEH, the first thing we looked at was, on the left here, was atmospheric pollution. And this is where we combined an atmospheric chemistry model, the EMEP model, with a health economics model, the alpha risk pole model, and used these to calculate the reduction in air pollution due to trees on a national basis, and identified that reduced exposure to particulate matter is achievable, in this case with 10% reduction. And then we calculate the benefits in terms of avoided life years lost across the country, and in this particular example, an estimate of 25,000 avoided life years lost. So the second example is of noise reduction modelling. So here we have a map of a specific area where we've identified where mitigation is achieved by tree canopies, and the trees mitigate noise by up to 2 decibels, and from these calculations we can then go on and identify the health benefits and the economic benefits, calculate those specifically from those trees. The third example is of riparian shade and water quality, and we've made shade maps of riparian tree coverage alongside the River Thames at 1 metre squared resolution. And this enables us to simulate water quality benefits in terms of suppressed eutrophication and also cooler water. And our calculations have suggested that the present day canopy along the River Thames is actively reducing the upper quartile water temperature by more than 1 degree, so more than 1 degree in the summer. The final example is from China, so one of our partners, the Chinese Academy of Sciences, and this is an example of lead sediment fingerprinting, where they've looked at the change in the last 100 years, so on the y-axis of this plot, and seen from that the changing dominance from natural sources of lead, with increasing contributions from vehicle exhaust and from coal combustion, and also showing how this varies along an urban gradient. So in the left hand side we have the urban core, and then moving outwards into the peri-urban peripheral areas. So the project is mainly focusing on 3 case studies, one in Oslo in Norway, the second one in Birmingham in the UK, and the third in Suzhou in China, and the case studies involve developing and applying models to evaluate NBS and identifying what our models should represent. So this slide illustrates the method about how we go about assessing multiple ecosystem service benefits of NBS, such as urban forestry and parkland. So the main part of this is making connections between environmental quality indicators that can be directly represented by models, for example biophysical models, socioeconomic models, making links between those EQIs and ecosystem services. So for example, we have paired connections, for example between river flow duration curve and flood prevention ecosystem service, and also for example between air quality concentrations and air purification ecosystem service. And with our ecosystem services we also need to map the demand and the need for NBS, and to do this we call upon maps of population density and data sets of social vulnerability. So then ecosystem services are then linked at a higher level through to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and making these linkages is a complex process. Interconnected challenges need to be solved to achieve Sustainable Development Goals, and in doing this during the whole process we're also using modified versions of the DIPSER concept, Drivers, Pressure, States, Impact and Response concept. And this, which has been developed in recent years in particular to help with understanding urban systems and nature-based solutions, builds up an iterative approach to represent multiple direct and indirect pathways of environmental state, pathways to human health. A very important part of the process is to understand issues of scale, and nature-based solutions mitigate impacts of pressures on receptors. So we have these spatial relationships between pressures, the NBS intervention and the receptor that might be human populations very nearby, very near the intervention, or maybe populations much further away. So these relationships, they may be directional, for example in the case of downstream river flows and water quality relationships based on the river network, or they might be outward in all directions. So we basically have two types of relationship that we want to embody here, and the first is relationships between size of the intervention and benefit. What we expect to see here is that there's a positive relationship between the NBS and the size of the benefit, but that relationship may well vary between different ecosystem services, and what's also very likely and is known in certain cases is that we reach a saturation effect at high levels of NBS. And the second relationship is distance decay relationships of benefit. So what we expect to see here is that for some ecosystem services there might be a rapid decay with distance from the NBS intervention, but in other cases there might be more persistent benefits. For example, in the case of water quality we might expect to see ecological benefits that might persist a long way downstream, and green space access benefits are likely to persist for quite some distance but then also tail off. So this is the framework for multiple ecosystem service environmental quality indicator assessment for nature-based solution placement that we're developing through the project. So the idea is that this is for use by a range of stakeholders such as municipalities, regulators, private sector, etc. The example that we're presenting is urban forestry, which is important as many cities have targets of tree canopy establishment that they're working towards. Now it's important that we stress that the results shown here are from a preliminary and hypothetical example from qualitative assessments purely based on expert judgment. And as we progress, These will obviously be updated with more rigorous methods. In any case, this particular assessment is based on a city with a southwest prevailing wind, with industry to the north and the east, and also areas within the city of derelict industrial land. So basically you can judge for yourselves how relevant that situation might be to a city that you might potentially be interested in. How does the system work? Well, basically we consider tree planting located from the perspective in turn of each of 8 intended primary beneficiaries in terms of ecosystem service provision. Starting therefore at the top of the diagram, we consider air purification, and optimal placement for that might be in an extensive belt between the urban area and the dominating polluting sources outside. So for scoring purposes, well, for the primary target beneficiary, benefit is always maximum and is marked in the respective spider diagram furthest from the centre. Then we go round the spider diagram, evaluating for each of the other 7 EQIs. Many of these secondary benefits, as you can see, are much smaller. Then, moving clockwise around the whole diagram, we next look at flood risk as the primary beneficiary. And the optimal placement in that case might be in clumps near headwater urban rivers. So in the same way as for air quality, we then evaluate the secondary benefits. As you can see, they are often larger in the case of this particular placement. The next stage is we repeat the exercise again for each of the 6 remaining EQIs in the roles of primary target beneficiary. So on completion, the placement with the highest total score is then considered optimal from a multi-benefit perspective. And for our preliminary example, the optimal solution is where the primary beneficiary is green space access. Of course, provision is made for component scores to be weighted in whatever way stakeholders might require in terms of their own specific interests. It's worth mentioning that we include soils. They've not been considered in detail yet within our project, but we're certainly increasingly recognising the importance of forestry for carbon sequestration, which helps meet net zero carbon targets, and also for the role in contaminated land remediation. So the ongoing idea with the project will be to build up evidence within the framework using a whole spectrum of approaches, from detailed process-based models through to simpler models, statistical approaches, GIS-based analysis, and also to systematic literature review. Thank you, and more information available in the link to the paper on which the work is based, links to Decipher and Re-Green projects, which UKCH is contributing NBS research, and also showing here a wider summary of UKCH research in urban environments. And any questions, welcome.
Thank you, Mike. The idea now was to hand over to Isabel to deal with any questions or comments that have arrived in the Q&A section of Zoom, but I cannot see there has come any.
Yes,
there
was.
Yes.
Yeah, there is one, but it's quite detailed, so I'm not sure if you rather addressed the written mic. And there is also one which went wrong in the chat, which asks how is each hexagon differently?
Okay, thank you, Isabel. I'm just looking at the Q&A now. So the air quality model is, usually for these assessments we use the EMAP model. The spatial resolution, this is a variable, a flexibility with the spatial resolution. For a city level analysis, I think we would typically use a 1 kilometre resolution, but coarse resolutions 10 kilometres squared are used in larger regional national studies. Yeah, I think that probably covers that. I see there's 1 or 2 other questions coming through.
Yeah, maybe you can allow for one more if you answer very fast. How do you balance different impacts such as temperature against access?
Yeah, well, I mean, this once again is something that we have to build in flexibility in our expert system to do this. I think we can probably come back to this issue more in the longer discussion at the end of the talks. But this is where we need to make the link between the indicators, environmental quality, and the ecosystem service, and the the financial aspects, the valuation of the different services. So I think it's a very good question. I think perhaps we will return to this issue of how to link quality indicators with ecosystem service and with benefit, and come back to that later if we can.
Yeah, we can do that. I think then we go ahead, Sindre.
Yes, I think we need to do that because of the slight delay here. But thank you, Mike, and please go on responding within the Q&A section as you can, Mike.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah. Then I have the great pleasure of introducing our next speaker, Dr. Daniela Rizzi. Daniela is a senior officer for nature-based solutions and biodiversity at ICLEI Europe. By training, she is an architect and urban planner from the University of Sao Paulo, and she holds a PhD in landscape planning from the Technical University of Munich. Daniela currently engaged in urban living labs and applied research to raise the impact of nature-based solutions. And she will now explain to us how ICLEI work with cities to plan, deliver, and upscale nature-based solutions. Welcome, Daniela.
Thanks so much, Sindre, and thank you all for being here today. It's a pleasure. I would like to tell you a little bit about the work we have been doing together with local governments and also citizens to raise the NBS agenda in Europe, and why not, also beyond Europe. So just very quickly, for those who never heard about ICLEI, ICLEI is a city network. We have offices spread around the world, and we have been working with more than 2,200 different local and regional governments to raise sustainability in a number of topics. We have been working with these 5 pathways. So the low emission development, nature-based development, equitable and people-centered development, resilient development, and circular development. The idea is, of course, to see this in an integrated manner and make sure that the pathways cross amongst one another. Here you can have an idea about the members in Europe. So you see the little dots here spread across the continent. And you see here the areas in which ICLEI is working. I'm going to focus today, of course, on nature-based solutions and biodiversity. Both cannot be detached from one another. And here a little bit about the work that we're realizing first at the global level. So we have been working a lot with the Scottish government for the Edinburgh Declaration, which is a commitment to raise biodiversity in cities. And we have now, I guess, amongst 200 cities that have signed, not only in Europe, but also beyond. We have also been working a lot with the Convention on Biological Diversity. The idea here is to, of course, you probably know that the Kunming event is coming up, and we want to be sure that we can set a big commitment to biodiversity as the Paris Agreement was for climate in 2015. So, and there is a lot of work being done with a network called Cities with Nature. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in later slides. We also have been putting up this subnational advocacy platform, which the idea is to raise the voice of cities and local governments, between the agreements, national discussions. So really to bring the voice of cities to the table. And of course, we also a partner from the United Nations Decade on ecosystem restoration. And at the European level, it's pretty much, it's very similar, the work. So we're also working with the Edinburgh Declaration, but we are also pairing a lot here with the European Committee of the Regions. So we have developed opinion fact sheets on biodiversity, and we have been engaging in an action plan to raise, you know, the local work within the biodiversity strategy 2030. So you're going to hear a lot in the upcoming months about the urban greening plans, and now they're putting the name of urban NBS plans. So municipalities that are bigger than 20,000 inhabitants, they should actually be developing such plans. So it's really an important policy that is coming up. And of course, we have been working with the urban agenda of the EU. And here some initiatives. I don't want to go into details because I want to show you a little bit more what cities are doing. But just to mention here, ICLEI has been working with 5 other partners with the Network Nature platform. This platform is actually reuniting the whole outputs and discussions of the H2020 funded projects, and now coming up with Horizon Europe. The program changed its name. We're going to hear from Christina later. We have also been working a lot with the Green Public Procurement help desk, because of course you can imagine how important it is for cities to learn how to procure nature-based solutions so that we can have these solutions being delivered in cities. And we have also been working a lot with the Green City Accord, which is a number of cities are signing this accord to commit to achieve certain targets in 5 areas. So in relation to noise reduction, to waste reduction, raising biodiversity and nature in cities, also about water, better water management. Yes. And we have been working a lot with facilitating knowledge exchange. So here, just for you to know, a number of players that have been quite relevant for us to connect them with cities. So of course, the European Commission with all these funded NBS projects. There's also a lot of work with the European Parliament. As I mentioned, the Committee of the Regions. The European Investment Bank has a program called NCFF. And this program has also been helping cities to plan and deliver nature-based solutions and of course, climate adaptation measures. There's also the EBRD. The EBRD has put up a green action plan, which mentions explicitly nature-based solutions as well. There are also work starting to roll more and more in relation to standards. So of course, we need standards for nature-based solutions. You probably heard about the IUCN standards, but there's also work in the European arena to deliver standards at the European level, so more specific than the IUCN global standards. And of course, we have been also working with the European Environment Agency. There are a number of publications that came out in the last months on nature-based solutions. So here, the networks, as I said, there is the Network Nature platform. There is the Urban by Nature program. So I'm going to dive into these networks a bit. So the idea here is to consolidate and expand and support communities of practice. So it's about upscaling the use of NBS. And we're working, of course, not only with cities on the ground with practice, but it's about doing the knowledge brokerage, right? Bringing the findings of researchers to the knowledge of cities and decision makers. So you can see, for example, the presentation that Mike did right before us on the importance of scale for the planning and delivery of nature-based solutions and ecosystem services. So this kind of research, our work here is to really translate this and bring this closer to cities, and of course test them in urban living labs, pilot the whole outputs that are coming out of research. And we have been working a lot with businesses as well. There is the whole discussions around the nature-based economy, an economy that is not no longer depleting our planetary resources, but really working with them and valuing nature. And not only valuing nature, but also the whole knowledge from communities and creating local nature-based solutions economies. It's very important here to mention that network nature it's not only about networking. It's also quite important to make sure that we can establish actually hubs for work. So there's very ambitious, the Network Nature platform wants to establish actually the hubs as being national, and they're even going for 27 new nature-based solutions hubs spread throughout Europe. And these hubs, they actually build on local initiatives and the work that partners are doing on the ground. And of course, each of them are getting like their own face and their own identity, building on focus areas that the regions are realizing. So for example, you can have as an entry point indicators and monitoring, as the city of Glasgow, for example, has been doing a lot of work in this area. So the hub will start structuring around that and will deepen more and more toward other areas. There are also the task forces on nature-based solutions. We're going to hear a little bit more from Christina here on this topic as well. I just want to mention here that the idea is that all these H2020 projects, they have been realizing a lot of work, and the idea is that people don't work separately. So the idea here is to make sure that researchers and businesses are exchanging among each other and not only doing competition, but also going for collaboration so that you can actually strengthen the synergies. I want to mention here Cities with Nature. This is a platform that has been backed up by the Convention on Biological Diversity. There are now almost 200 cities that signed to this. The mayors have signed, so it's actually high level. And it is about making sure that cities can go through a pathway to raise biodiversity. So it has to do with putting up policy instruments and using also the instruments that are coming out of the projects. So for example, you can have a handbook for public procurement, use that handbook that came out from work from the Commission, for example, or you can make sure that you can use decision-making tools. So this platform tries to reunite all the different outputs out there and put them to the use of cities who are going to go through a journey here to raise their biodiversity net gain. Yeah, and here is also the Urban by Nature program. This program is being backed up by the Cities with Nature, so we try always to look for synergies. This is actually a capacity building program for local governments, and we have been bringing the content from researchers from the projects and realizing series of webinars in different regions around the world. So we started with Brazil and then with China, the Caucasus, and also Korea. So these are the 4 hubs that are already established. And the idea now is to establish 3 new hubs in Europe and pair them with the hubs that Network Nature wants to do, so that these hubs have a long-term backing up.
2 minutes left, Daniela.
Yeah, thank you. And so I want to show you a bit about the projects that we have been realizing, but I'm going to focus on the Regreen project here. So we have been working to reunite on a number of topics, good practices from cities. And we have been able to cover actually 11 topics with the work we have been doing. And these topics, they range from biodiversity governance, health and well-being, education, water quality improvement, flood mitigation, noise mitigation, heat mitigation, air quality improvement, business activation, and urban design elements. So we have been able to show good examples in each of these areas, and structuring these fact sheets with a description of the situation, with the challenges that cities have been facing, not only cities, but also local partners, with opportunities, lessons learned, and what is more important here, thinking about the upscale of NBS, inspiration for others. So these fact sheets, I encourage you to take a look. And I'm going to mention, because I just have like 1 minute, I'm going to mention just some things that we found out with these fact sheets. So some tips for cities wanting to develop NBS strategies. So it is quite important to integrate the work that you have been doing in overarching strategies, for example, existing climate plans, and also to European strategies like the European Biodiversity Strategy 2030. It's important to work with stakeholders and take into account their concerns. We can no longer just do, normal consultation processes, but it's really to go a step further and really launch co-creation processes where you really take into account the information that you are serving, and not only inform them, but really co-decide with them. It's about combining support and promotion programs with accessibility of practical examples for public and experts and administration staff. It's about producing content and images for the public, for experts, and also for the media. It's about distributing advice and training content for different target groups, and providing regular feedback and update meetings with all partners. So yes. So this is just the last slide, doing a bit of an overview about the work that ICLEI has been doing with cities to upscale and outscale NBS. And we're going to hear now from Christina a little bit more about the upcoming Horizon Europe calls. This is one of our main entry points in cities, because we do get the resources to test things, and not only to talk about things, but also the policy work is quite important. So yeah, so we hope that we could give a little bit of an overview in this webinar today about the work we do. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Daniela, for your presentation. There was a lot to digest here, and it seems from the Q&A section that the audience are still digesting a little bit before coming up with the questions. So I hope there will be some, but since no one has written anything so far, I suggest we proceed with our next speaker. And so finally, I have the honor of introducing Christina Fantasia from DG Research and Innovation. Christina is a biologist with long experience in the implementation of EU legislation on biodiversity and nature protection. She worked for 20 years at the Ministry of Environment in Cyprus before joining the Nature Protection Unit in DG Environment, which is responsible for the implementation of the Habitats and Birds directives. Just recently, she joined the biodiversity team of DG Research and Innovation of the European Commission. And she is also stressing that she is today replacing her colleague, Diego Freitas, who is explicitly dealing with the issue of nature-based solution, which Christina is just a beginner in this area. But Christina will, in her presentation, both place the role of nature-based solution in a wider EU policy framework, but she will also tell about upcoming calls in Horizon Europe in 2022. So please welcome Christina. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Sindre. Thank you very much. So let me share my screen. Is it okay?
Yes, looks fine.
Great. Excellent. So thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here with you today and participate at this webinar because I suppose that we are all convinced how important are nature-based solutions for the sake of the environment, for the goals that we have set, like for climate change, for biodiversity protection. But again, we should underline that it's also crucial to have funds for this, to implement these projects and be able to implement in practice the nature-based solutions. So I will be giving you some information about the funding opportunities from Horizon Europe and let you know where you can find more information in case you are interested in these calls that we have. So first of all, before going into detail, it's very important to agree on the definition of nature-based solutions. I think that Sindre already mentioned this definition, and I will not read this, of course, but what I want to emphasize is that nature-based solutions must therefore, amongst others, benefit biodiversity and support the delivery of a range of ecosystem services. So this is the definition that the European Commission uses, and this is what we think we should all agree to. So we have heard from the previous speakers about the different projects on nature-based solutions, and we can all see that they do bring multiple benefits. And here I have put in this slide a very simple nature-based solution like the green roofs, where we all understand that they do benefit biodiversity, but at the same time they benefit climate, the social cohesion, health, and green jobs. So we can all agree that nature-based solutions can play a central role in mainstreaming biodiversity across sectoral policies as they benefit and are based on biodiversity, but at the same time they can also deliver multiple wider societal, environmental, and economic benefits. And here we have some examples of these solutions. We can have rehabilitation of wetlands, filtration gardens, permeable pavements, renaturing of rivers. So there are many examples of nature-based solutions in cities, and we have also a lot of projects being funded by the Horizon 2020 already. So we have experience. Of course, we have a lot of gaps, but we also have a lot of experience in these solutions. So Horizon Europe. Horizon Europe is the EU, the European Union's key funding program that will be implemented for 2021-2027. The previous one was Horizon 2020, and as we have already said, a lot of projects on nature-based solutions have been funded. It's a program with a considerable amount of money. We have 95.5 billion euros to cover, of course, a lot of sectors, not only environment, climate, but it's going to be a very ambitious program. And this program will aim to address some of the problems that the challenges that we have, like climate change, try to help achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and but also the Biodiversity Strategy 2030. And this is the structure of Horizon Europe. In case that you're not familiar, we have the three pillars. Pillar 1 is the excellent science. Pillar 2, where environment, climate, biodiversity fall in, are global challenges in European industrial competitiveness. We have the 6 clusters here. So I will be talking about cluster 6. You see the bullets there. So the last bullet is where biodiversity falls in, and the calls on biodiversity, and pillar 3, where we have the innovative Europe. So now I will be talking about the different calls on biodiversity. As I told you, we're talking about the biodiversity and ecosystem services calls, where they fall in cluster 6. These are the calls for 21, where the calls have already been announced, but the deadline is not there, so we still have a few days. You see that we had 2 calls to cover 22 topics. The one call was specifically for the biodiversity partnership, and the deadline has expired. But the other call, where we have also some topics related to NBS, the deadline is on the 6th of October. And you see that we have the 5 headings there: understanding biodiversity decline, valuing and restoring biodiversity and ecosystem services, managing biodiversity in primary production, enabling transformative change on biodiversity and interconnecting biodiversity research and supporting policies. We have the 21 topics in this specific call, and where we aim to do with all these calls is to understand better the main drivers of biodiversity decline, to ensure that biodiversity and natural capital are integrated into public and business decision making, to further deploy nature-based solutions. This is very important for our discussions today, and the other impacts and targets that you see in this slide. So what I want to emphasize is that, as I told you, we do have a lot of information. We do have experience in nature-based solutions, in general, in the drivers of biodiversity decline, but we also have a lot of gaps. And this is what we try to address through the different topics of the calls of Horizon Europe. And this is a slide. Don't be scared of this slide. I just copy paste the titles of the topics of these of the 2 calls of 2021, just to emphasize the how many issues and how many challenges we want to cover with this course. We go like from the biodiversity genomics, endangered wildlife species, nature-based solutions, organic crop breeding. So you understand that with all these calls, we try to fill a lot of gaps that we have identified. This is the ongoing procedure of 2021, and again, I'm telling you that the deadline is on the 6th of October, so we have a few more days for the proposals to be submitted. These are some of the topics that are relevant to nature-based solutions, but of course there could be others. I just mentioned here some of them, and something which I believe it will be more important for the people who are listening today are the funding opportunities for 2022. So again, we're going to have the calls for this. I have included in this slide some of the topics that might be of interest and related to nature-based solutions. As I told you, it's possible that there are more. So I kindly ask you to have a look when all this will be available, and I will give you the dates where you will find all this information. And yeah, so, and I have put in red what is I believe the most relevant topic of today's discussion, where we have a topic where with the title Assessing the Sociopolitics of Nature-Based Solutions for More Inclusive and Resilient Communities. And here you see what is the policy content of this specific topic, what are the expected outcomes. Of course, the policy content is to ensure that NBS contribute to the EU biodiversity strategy and other Green Deal priorities. You can see here the expected outcomes for this specific topic. But what I find more interesting and important is the scope of this topic, where you see here that we would like to have through this project to investigate how different NBS designs and governance can contribute to environmental justice, prevent environmental racism. All these are topics that are very issues that are very important. We want to see innovative governance models to explore different forms of engagement. So all these are very important things that we have, that we hope that will be covered through the different calls. So now about the important dates. As I told you, the 2021 calls will end very soon, 6th of October, but the 2022 calls will open on the 28th of October. 2021, and I invite you to join the info days that we will organize in DG Research and Innovation, where all these topics will be presented. There will be possibility for the people to ask questions, whatever they want to learn more. And the deadline for the proposal will be the 15th of February 2022. So these are important days. Please have them in mind. And to finish, I have put here the most important websites where you can find all the information related to the calls and also to Horizon Europe. Here on NBS, you can find a lot of information on EU and NBS, the reports that have been prepared, and also handbooks and other information about the projects, and more information on Horizon Europe and the different, and the cluster 6 that I just mentioned, Horizon Europe in general, and very, very important, the funding and tenders portal, where you can find a lot of information about the different topics, the different calls for the specific ones, who can apply, and there is also a frequent ask questions. So please go and search into this website, and I'm sure that you will be able to find a lot of information to help you in case you want to apply and use the funds available in Horizon Europe. So this is what I wanted to say to you. Back to you, Sindre.
Thank you so much, Christina, for a clear and crisp presentation. And I will now directly hand over to Isabel, who I think will take maybe one question to you directly, Christina, and then go on with the panel discussion. So Isabel, please take over from here.
Yeah, there's one question to you, Christina, or I think you might be the most appropriate person to answer this. Is there a clear definition of the EU Commission? What are nature-based solutions and what are green infrastructure? What is green infrastructure? Is there a distinction between the two?
Yes, there is distinction between the two. For the nature-based solutions, which is, I mean, the topic of our webinar today, I told you what is very important for us to consider, that we need to take into consideration that nature-based solutions should also address to benefit biodiversity. I mean, what I can think of now is that we cannot consider that monoculture, for example, with palm trees, can be considered as nature-based solutions because they do not benefit biodiversity. So what we need to have in mind that nature-based solutions should cover all three targets: social, environmental, biodiversity. So, and there is a difference with green infrastructure, but I cannot give you now the exact definition of the green infrastructure's definition. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then I think we go right away to the panel discussion, where the people who presented now are part of the panel. We have prepared 3 questions beforehand, but the audience is invited to post in a way more questions in the Q&A. So the first question which we want to ask you in the panel is about the role of citizens. And the question is, how or should the role of citizens be considered in the whole life cycle of nature-based solutions, which means from ideation to implementation, or to planning to implementation, but also afterwards monitoring and maintenance. I think I will give the word first to Daniela, because she mentioned the role of citizens involvement in her talk.
Yes. Oh my God, I just noticed that my mic is open. I hope I didn't disrupt before. So you're asking about the role of citizens, right? And communities. Yeah, this is for us one of the, let's say, main areas of research that we are rolling out with cities. I mean, of course, it is very important to do a lot of work related to the technical solutions, right? And quantify the benefits and etc. But we are pretty sure that if you cannot take people with you in the NBS journey, you're going to have problems in maintenance on the longer term. And we're also going to have problems how can I say, like how people perceive these structures. So we think that involving local communities, citizens, neighborhood institutions is quite crucial. Also because there is a whole area of research called co-creation, co-production. So some institutions call it co-production, others call it co-creation. Which is about collaborative governance models. And nature-based solutions has, because of the nature of this topic, which is quite interdisciplinary, you need people from different sectors here to sit on the table and discuss it. And therefore, co-creation is very important between departments in the city, but also with the citizens. So you have now in the last 2 years a number of publications coming out on this topic. There are whole H2020 projects that focus a lot on co-creation. So yes, I think this is one of the main areas of study and of action, for sure.
Thanks. Maybe Christina next. Does the EU have a vision how citizens should be involved in the nature-based solution business?
Thank you, Isabel. I want to say something about the role of citizens. Like Daniela said, I think it's really important to include citizens from the beginning because of 3 reasons, I think. First of all, we increase the knowledge and we make people more sensitive in protecting nature. You know, they make them take action in protecting nature, something which is very important. They will be informed on the benefits of nature-based solutions, so they will feel the ownership when we have the projects in place, and of course this will make the outcome, the result, more sustainable. And the third thing that I would like to say is that if people are involved in the nature-based solutions in these projects, they would be also involved in the planning process, because we're talking about cities, and there we see that we know that there are procedures where people can participate. So if they know what are the benefits of nature-based solutions, what are the opportunities, then I believe they will be more active in demanding to have greener cities, to have, let's say, cities with that meet the society needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Mike, if you allow me, I would switch to the next question, which is more a technical one, and maybe you can link it to another question posted in the Q&A session. How do we deal best with uncertainty associated with nature-based solutions? And I think this is associated also to this, how do we deal with trade-offs between different benefits in a way? Can you say something on this, Mike?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, well, very important question, the one about uncertainty. And I think it's quite sort of pervasive across sort of all aspects of the NBS research that we're all undertaking. I think uncertainty can represent a barrier to uptake. I think, confidence in nature-based solutions is perhaps, there's work to be done to improve confidence in their in their effectiveness, and that's related to uncertainties about the benefits they provide. I think there's a lot we can do in various aspects from a technical point of view, improving our models, undertaking uncertainty analysis within our models that we use to quantify the NBS benefits. The models that are used are, along, I think, not just in the projects I've been mentioning, but in the many projects that are underway, they use long-standing models which are very suitable for uncertainty analysis. They have the frameworks to do that. And I think the other thing that's important is to comprehensively review the research that is out there and review the evidence for NBS effectiveness, and how that might vary in scale, and how that might vary from one country to another, between different climatic contexts, different geographical contexts. I think there's a lot of work to be done in terms of really understanding the body of evidence out there for effectiveness of NBS, and that goes a long way to, I hope, to reducing uncertainty in their effectiveness.
Yeah, I would like to pose the same question to Daniela. Do you observe in your daily work with the municipalities in Europe that this uncertainty might be a showstopper for implementing more nature-based solutions?
Yes, for sure. I mean, I think about here the procurement department a lot, right? Because people, they tend to do what they're used to do, So if they know how a process works, and if they're going to treat, let's say, a river, and they have been doing it with great infrastructure for the last 10 years, they're going to fear, doing it in a different way. So for this, we really need procurement processes in place for them to be able to open tenders with nature-based solutions and green infrastructure, and etc. So yes, there are skeptical voices in regards to nature-based solutions. And I think the reason for that, one of the reasons is, of course, this path dependency, that people don't really like to change the way they have been doing things in the past. But the other reason is that I think we need more and more research. We need actually to raise the knowledge base here and raise scientific results and do comparisons. I think one of the questions here was about comparative studies. And we should not compare only in terms of money, how much it costs, but also in terms of what you're getting out of it. And we know, Mike, we have been discussing this in Regreen a lot. It's not so easy to quantify the benefits that are being delivered by nature. Is much more complex. The variables are, much more complex. And if you think about also the whole benefits in terms of health and well-being, it's also not so easy to quantify these. But we should be able to, to talk about qualitative indicators, not only quantity, not you from an engineer, but yeah, have put a number in a way in quality that is being gained through NBS.
Thank you. Christina, from the EU position.
Yes, and I agree with Danielle, and this is where the European Commission comes in. I mean, the Commission supports all these needs and the importance of having concrete examples and knowing more about the value and the outcomes and the benefits of nature-based solutions. And on the uncertainty issue, I think that what is important is to be flexible when designing. When having ideas, when creating, these nature-based solutions, we need to give room to this uncertainty and be able to adapt on the way, because it could be that there are new conditions, disruptions. There could be, I don't know, higher temperatures, less water, more water. So we need to be able to change the plans and be able to adapt based on these uncertainties that unfortunately they exist.
Yeah, there's an interesting question from Australia. What is your feeling, Mike? We are living in countries where we have a lot of rainfall, usually Norway and the UK, but are we building ourselves also in a way vulnerable by, or do we consider in a way climate change enough when we plant in a way nature-based solutions, which will require definitely some water, most of them?
Yeah, so, indeed. I think this is a big subject and something that we really need to focus on in ongoing research. And I think pilot studies, just picking up again on some of the previous comments, pilot studies and further research on the on small-scale impacts. Mesocosms are valuable experimental ways forward to sort of understand how to manipulate input climate variables, to understand how different different nature-based solutions might benefit in under different climatic contexts. I think there's a great deal that needs doing in terms of future-proofing nature-based solutions against change. Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, I think I lead a bit over to the panel questions now. What is your feeling, Christina? Is this concept of nature-based solutions? Is this something which the EU might export to other countries? Is the concept also something which could be applied in the Middle East or in Africa or in other countries in a way?
Sure, I believe so. I mean, the nature-based solutions are solutions that can be, applied everywhere. We have a lot of challenges to face, and nature-based solutions can help towards, addressing some of the challenges. Of course, each country, each continent faces its own challenges, but through the examples and through the projects that we have in place and have been implemented in Europe, I believe that we can have a lot of results, a lot of conclusions, and a lot of examples that can be used from other countries as well. And the EU, of course, is open and collaborates with countries outside the EU, and we learn from them and they learn from us. So, of course, this is something important, and to have this cooperation amongst, other continents and other countries.
Just one follow-up question on this. Do you observe in a way that there is enough also political interest in countries outside the EU for nature-based solutions, or are there other problems which are more pressing in a way?
You're asking me, Isabel?
Yeah, again.
Well, you asked for countries outside the EU. Well, I cannot say what's going on. I cannot judge what's going on outside, the EU. Of course, the countries put their priorities. What I want to say is that for us in the European Union, the nature-based solutions are very important, and we know for a fact that they can help addressing a lot of challenges that we have. And this is really, I mean, as I told you, we do have gaps. We do need more research, but it's for sure that they can help. So countries that they still have doubts about the use of nature-based solutions, then I suppose that the people, the decision makers, the politicians, they will need to be informed about the examples and about the benefits that nature-based solutions have shown through these European projects and the experience that we have gained. Thank you.
Thanks. Maybe Daniela, you represent ICLEI Europe, but I guess that you have a lot of contracts also with the other ICLEI offices. So is this topic, nature-based solutions, equally hot in the other ICLEI offices as it's in Europe?
Isabel, I think that's a very interesting question. It's not such a priority as it is in Europe. I think we can really say without fear that Europe is kind of leading the way, you know, for local governments and regional governments to you know, to plan and deliver nature-based solutions. And I think the reason for this is because there are resources in place, you know, for us to test out things and, you know, network and promote discussions and do living labs and etc. But I can mention some countries that are also interested. I mean, one country I know, communication is not always easy because of like cultural differences and everything, but I do see China is interested in nature-based solutions a lot. They call it maybe not NBS, they have other names for it, but you just see their program, you know, with the sponge cities, for example, which very clearly shows a movement towards nature-based solutions. And of course, there are these projects with China that Mike mentioned here, the Decipher project, the Regreen project. I can also say that although there are some governmental problems in Brazil, there is a very active nature-based solutions group on the ground there, that they are trying, despite of the difficulties of the actual government there, they're really trying to, you know, deliver NBS and do depaving work with citizens, you know, break the asphalt in cities and try to bring back nature. So there is a very strong movement there coming from grassroots communities, you know, and initiatives. Yes, I mean, these are two countries that I can for sure mention that they are interested.
Thanks. I think we can take one last question, which has a bit different topic. There were questions about the engagement or the role of great companies, but also small and medium enterprises in implementing nature-based solutions. Can, in a way, nature-based solutions contribute to boost local economies? Mike, do you have any experiences with the involvement of companies in nature-based solutions?
Not really, to be honest. We do have some experience with companies providing sort of expertise in valuing nature-based solutions and in providing quite specific guidance in terms of local beneficiaries, in terms of the citing of NBS. I think we've had little involvement, or me personally has had little involvement with companies of this type. Possibly, well, for example, in the project, in the Decipher project, we have had some sort of wider engagement that Isabel, you may know of yourself, I'm not sure, but this one, I think, yeah, I think it's fairly limited at this point.
Yeah, Christina, what is your feeling about that? I know that the European Union sees this as a chance for Europe, but is it really happening already? The boost in nature-based solutions economy.
It's starting, Isabel, I think. At least from what I feel is that now inside the EU, people are started being convinced about the importance of nature-based solutions and that they can play an important role in the economy, because I mean, the nature-based solutions they do not only benefit, as we said, nature, biodiversity, but they can also create jobs. They can, you know, they can help us address some of the climate issues that they cost. You know, the results of this crisis that we are having cost a lot of money. So I think that we have started learning from the implementation of these projects and from the experience, the limited experience that we have, and that we are in the right way, I would say, you know, to include, to give emphasis in nature-based solutions in solving some of the problems that we have.
Thanks, Christina. I think we stop here because we're reaching the end of the seminar. Sindre? Is Sindre still with us? Okay. Eric, you see if Sindre is still there?
He's still there, but he has muted and he has turned off his video. So I'm not quite sure.
Okay, but then
Where
maybe...
he is? Yeah. I can.
Okay, I can also bring this to an end. I know
Yeah.
the program, but yeah, thanks a lot to the audience for joining in here, and also to the speakers and the panelists today. And as you noticed in the beginning, the meeting was recorded, so it will be spread out afterwards, and also the presentations will be made publicly available. And yeah, I'm sorry that we could probably not address all questions, but we tried as good as we could given the limited time frame. And I think with this we can finish the seminar. Have a nice day all together.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.